As Israel prepares the next phase of the war, which they insist will be the finishing blows against Gaza, um, the Israelis understand that this is perhaps their last chance to get the hostages back. And so massive protests erupt across Israel as thousands demand Netanyahu's immediate resignation, an end to the war in Gaza, and a hostage deal. Anger is mounting among demonstrators against Netanyahu. So here you could see an overhead view of Tel Aviv, hundreds of thousands, huge turnout. And there were also strikes and work stoppages. So overall, the number of people who participated in these protests against the government is in the millions. So you're talking about a very considerable portion of the population is now protesting against the government. Hundreds of thousands protest Gaza war as frustration grows in Israel about new offensive. In the plaza that Israelis have christened Hostage Square, hundreds of thousands of people banged drums, shouted slogans, and booed mention of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others in his right-wing government. Some held pictures of those still in captivity in Gaza. Others vented their frustration over plans for a new military offensive in some of the enclave's most populated areas that many Israelis fear could further endanger the lives of the remaining hostages, 20 to 50 of whom are believed to be alive. The protest in Tel Aviv on Sunday was one of dozens organized nationwide, including outside of politicians' homes, at military headquarters, and on major highways. Demonstrators blocked lanes and lit bonfires. Some restaurants and theaters closed in solidarity. Police said they arrested 38 people. So the Washington Post has some footage of the demonstrations on the highways and marches. So you saw one sign there, never again is now, though polling wise, it still constitutes a very small minority of Israelis who seem bothered by the forced starvation of the Palestinians. You are seeing more of them start to vocalize that, as we will see as we go on. Many of the speeches, signs, and prepared videos appeal directly to President Donald Trump in English, pleading with him to compel Netanyahu to seal the deal with Hamas, who, by the way, just agreed to a ceasefire term, and now they're going to try to get Israel to agree to it as well, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen from everything we know so far. The prime minister and his top officials poured scorn on Sunday's demonstrations. Those who today call for an end to the war without defeating Hamas are not only hardening Hamas's position and delaying the release of our hostages, they are also ensuring that the horrors of October 7th will be repeated, the prime minister told his cabinet on Sunday. Okay, so understand, if you here in America still believe that line of bullshit, understand you are more brainwashed than most Israelis at this point, because most Israelis understand that it is Netanyahu who is delaying the release of the hostages, denying hostage release exchange after hostage exchange, and then breaking the longest ceasefire of the war before it entered phase 2, in which more hostages were due to have been released. So here is Bezalel Smotrich, who tweets out from his account, chiding the protesters. The people of Israel wake up this morning to a toxic and harmful campaign that plays into the hands of Hamas, buries the hostages in tunnels, and tries to bring the state of Israel to surrender to its enemies and endanger its security and future. Again, the brazenness with which these people will lie, not to us, not just to Americans apparently, but to their own people as well. That is just, Orwell wouldn't even write that. He would think, you know what, that's too much. No one would buy that. Who is literally trying to bury hostages in the tunnels? It's the Israelis who are carpet bombing Gaza. That's how to bury hostages in tunnels. Most of the Israeli public now understands that a ceasefire and a hostage exchange is the way to get them out. But no, they are sticking to this. They are sticking to this because now is their chance to finish the job, and that's what they are intent on doing. As it looks right now, despite a campaign of millions and a crazy buildup by irresponsible media and a series of self-interested political actors, the campaign, thank God, is not gaining traction and involves very few people. Again, just the brazenness with which they lie. You had hundreds of thousands in Tel Aviv alone, just in Tel Aviv. Not to mention the work stoppages, which involved hundreds of thousands more. Altogether, you have almost half the country participating in this protest in one form or another. But this guy says, nah, these are just self-interested political actors. It's not gaining traction. It's very small. The state of Israel is neither standing still nor striking nor succumbing to all sorts of bombastic slogans they're trying to sell us. In total, just a small number of people who chose to disrupt the daily routine of Israeli citizens and block their way to work. This fact is encouraging and teaches us that the vast majority of the people of Israel are not confused. And even after a year and a half of emotional brainwashing costing billions of shekels, they understand that a nation that desires life cannot surrender to its enemies and stop the war just before the destruction of Hamas, the removal of the threat posed by Gaza for many years, and the return of all the hostages. The people of Israel understand that the pressure must be applied to Hamas to convince them, not to the Israeli government. I choose to fulfill my civic duty on this day by sharing with you here, along with a warm reading recommendation, the important weekend column by journalist Kalman Libeskind, one of the few who dares to stand against the mobilized herd and speak the truth. We ain't reading that. Free Palestine, of course. But you'd see what he is saying there is just in defiance of what everyone can see and hear. Their government's approach appears to have the backing of Trump. We will only see the return of the remaining hostages when Hamas is confronted and destroyed, he wrote Monday on Truth Social. Play to win or don't play at all. So despite the Israeli people turning out in record numbers to protest the government because they know this is suicide and that they know this spells doom for their hostages and that the last chance to get them back is to stop this before Israel escalates even further, Donald Trump is backing the government in this. We will only see the return of the remaining hostages when Hamas is confronted and destroyed. The sooner this takes place, the better chances of the success will be. Remember, I was the one who negotiated and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Again, just lying so brazenly. It's incredible that they expect anyone to believe this. How can you possibly say that the way to get the hostages back is to escalate even further? Everybody knows that is the barrier to a hostage exchange. It's the complete opposite. So this is an interesting piece of video. In a Channel 4 interview, after news broke that Hamas accepted the latest phase ceasefire proposal, Israeli finance minister spokesperson, whatever his name is, refused to say whether Israel would as well. He also brushed off mass protests in Tel Aviv calling for a deal and falsely claimed that Israel accepts. The text runs on there, but let's take a look at this video right here.
Huge demonstrations on the streets of Tel Aviv against the war. What about the fact that two of your former prime ministers are dead set against continuing the war? What about the fact that the current head of the IDF, the man who's supposed to make this happen in Gaza, he doesn't like this plan either, as well as dozens of former security chiefs, intelligence chiefs, military chiefs. I mean, the entire military intelligence establishment, as far as we can tell, of Israel is against this idea. So why are you doing it?
All those demonstrations, all those demonstrators want one thing. They want to see our hostages coming back home. All of us. You know what, Matt? Myself, as a spokesperson of the ministry, as an individual, I want to see the hostages coming back right now. The only problem is we are not negotiating with ourselves.
But sorry to interrupt you. There were large numbers of hostages released after a deal was done, between you and Hamas via the Qataris and the Americans. quite some time ago now, we saw, hundreds of hostages, more than 100 hostages released. But there has to be a deal.
There has to be a deal. And for a deal, you need two to tango.
This is unbelievable. It's really, this is propaganda on a level that makes the George W. Bush administration post 9/11 look like honest actors. To see these people just sit up here and say what is so obvious, so comically obvious to be the opposite of the truth is just amazing. What the reporter says there is absolutely right. But wait a minute. You had a deal. He's talking about the one back in January that Trump brokered in advance of taking office. You had a deal. You had hostages exchanged. So what do you mean you want the hostages back as soon as possible? We need a deal, but we can't make a deal because we're not negotiating with people who want a deal. There's a deal that Hamas has agreed to right now. Right now. You could take it if you want.
Right now, Israel said yes to every proposal that was put on the table. Again, this is not
just a blatant, bald-faced lie.
Yep. Well, but this is why you talk to any Zionist, and it's just a litany of bullshit like that. You start speaking about the Palestinian position, and immediately they go to stuff like this. How many ceasefire proposals has Israel accepted now, and they've rejected it? I've lost count. 7, 8, 9. This is it, because they listen to these people. And they consider them actually reliable sources of information. Well, again, exclusively. Anything that contradicts it is anti-Semitism. They're being paid by Qatar. I had a Zionist tell me, because I showed how the IDF itself was saying that Hamas wasn't stealing food, and they said they were probably paid by Qatar at the newspaper to say that.
Yeah, and it does seem to be a pattern that perhaps American Zionists are more inclined to take people like this seriously because they're not as familiar with them.
They are. That's always been the case.
Right. So they maybe they feel a sense of guilt that they themselves don't stand by their principles and move to Israel and live there. So they kind of view these people through a much more charitable lens than the Israelis do, because the reason 300 Israelis are out in the streets and the reason why a couple million of them participated in this work stoppage protest is because they can understand that this guy is just a brazen liar. So why do the American Zionists feel a need to defer to them? I think there's some of that guilt that they're not in Israel, right? So maybe they put more stock in what they say, because again, that if you know the first thing about these past 2 years, you know what he just said. Israel has accepted every proposal. You know that is a bald-faced lie. That is absolutely untrue. There's no real way to argue against that in any sophisticated kind of way. It's just bullshit. It's plainly bullshit.
It's just an extension of how they present history. The way they present history is that the Palestinians were offered all of these great deals for a state. The way that they framed Gaza, that it was, that was a state. They had a state.
Right.
That's a state where you pen them in, surround them with your military, don't allow them to fish their own waters and control their water and electricity. They can't have an army. They can't have their own diplomatic relations.
Right.
That's a state in what sense? That's a prison. That's not a state.
Exactly. Let's keep going.
Me speaking. This is the United States of America. This is Steve Witkoff saying. This is the president of the United States saying Hamas is not willing to budge. So if you have one side that is willing to have a negotiation, one side that is willing to have a ceasefire, one side that is saying yes to a proposal, and the other side is keep saying no, or spreading this smoke screen, what other option do you have?
There was also a deal on the table at the beginning of the year. That seemed to work quite well.
No.
And then they went along with the deal, and then you broke the ceasefire. Israel broke the ceasefire.
We did not break the ceasefire.
Again, how do you deal with this? No, we didn't. What do you mean, though? You didn't break the ceasefire? Everybody knows that. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. You don't see bullshit like that every day. That is just on another level. It is just fucking insane what they are willing to say in such obvious defiance of the truth. So obvious, here's Haaretz. Over 2.5 million Israelis joined Sunday protests so far. Organizers estimate 300,000 now in Tel Aviv's hostage square. So you're talking about a third of the population. You're talking about 1 in 3 Israelis taking part in these nationwide protests. And how are they treated? Well, here we go, folks. The only democracy in the Middle East. Here are the cops beating on them. Kind of looks like a pro-Palestine protest here, does it not?
Please clap.